As the United States approaches the November 5th election, the Democratic Party stands at a historic juncture, with Kamala Harris as the party's official nominee.
We are witnessing a full-on attack on hard-fought freedom.
Now, this nomination reflects the Democratic Party's evolution from its origins in the early days of the Republic to its current identity, marked by inclusivity and a progressive stance on social issues. Now, over the centuries, this party has undergone several transformations, grappling with issues like slavery, civil rights, labor reform, with each shift shaping its ideology and its political base. Today, as the Democrats prepare to defend their vision under Harris's candidacy, the party's complex history offers a window into how the Democratic Party came to embody many of the values that they champion in the modern era.
You may not always agree with me, but I promise I will do everything I can to lift up the middle class and be a president for all Americans.
But where did the Democrats really begin life? Well, the Democratic Republican Party emerged in the late 18th century as an early opposition party to the Federalists, who were led by towering American figures like George Washington, John Adams, and Alexander Hamilton, who advocated a strong central government and a national bank. In contrast, the Democratic Republicans were led by Presidents Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, who supported a more decentralized and limited government. Now, this opposition party gained ground after 1800, with Jefferson's faction prevailing as the Federalists gradually lost influence and dissolved in the early 19th century following the War of 1812. In 1824, a contested election splintered the Democratic Republicans, leading to the creation of the Democratic Party, championed by President Andrew Jackson. Now, Jackson's presidency saw him veto the renewal of the Bank of the United States, which was that national bank we were talking about, and prompted the formation of the Whig Party. By the 1840s, both the Democrats and the Whigs had evolved into significant national parties, with the Democrats dominating presidential elections through much of the 19th century. Andrew Jackson's presidency, as well as that of his successor, Martin Van Buren, led to the dominance of the Democratic Party for several decades in American politics. However, the Democratic Party was undone by the issue of slavery. This had been a major political issue between the northern and the southern states in America. The northern states in general opposed slavery, whereas the southern states depended on it. Now, the issue of slavery brought divisions in the party in the 1850s and fractured established political alliances. Southern Democrats supported slavery expansion, while Northern Democrats preferred local votes on the matter. The division between the Democratic Party facilitated the rise of the Republican Party, which you might remember as it's the current opposition party today, and led to the election of Abraham Lincoln in 1860. Lincoln, by the way, was the first Republican to win election as President of the United States. Now, following the American Civil War between 1861 and 1865, the Republicans dominated American politics and sought to expand rights for African Americans who had been slaves earlier. Now, this was a stance largely opposed by Southern Democrats, who gradually implemented what were known as Jim Crow laws, which enforced segregation and voter suppression in the Southern American states. Entering the 20th century, the Democrats saw a transformation during the Progressive era, as figures like William Jennings Bryan advocated a more active government role in social justice. Although the Republican Party initially thrived in the prosperous 1920s, the Great Depression, which took place in 1929, wrecked America's economy. Now, this Great Depression led to a major shift in public support, which allowed political figures like Franklin Delano Roosevelt to rise to the presidency of the United States. As a Democrat, Roosevelt implemented the New Deal, which set the Democrats on a path of dominance lasting nearly 6 decades, and which continues to shape how the Democrats see themselves today. During this period, the Democratic Party became increasingly associated with labor rights, government intervention in the economy, welfare spending to help the poor, which also helped reshape the Democratic Party's identity. Another crucial thing that happened in the 20th century was the party's stance on civil rights for American minorities. Now, one part of the Democratic Party, the Southern Democrats, were also known as the Dixiecrats, and they temporarily split from the party in 1948 over civil rights issues because they did not want to support greater rights for minorities like African Americans. As the Democrats began supporting civil rights more, Black voters began aligning more with the Democratic Party, spurred by the social welfare spending of the New Deal and various civil rights advancements. Meanwhile, many Southern white voters who had never been great fans of the expansion of civil rights began moving towards the Republican Party, especially after Democratic President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Both of these were crucial pieces of legislation that advanced political rights for African Americans. So by the 1960s, the Democratic Party's major identity, which continues to this day, had been set in stone. It was a party that largely supported welfare spending, a greater role for the government, and greater civil rights for African Americans and other minorities. The Republican Party, on the other hand, was more conservative on social issues, but much more open on economic issues and much more supportive of free markets and big businesses. At least that was the major popular image that existed of the two political parties. Now, in the recent decades, the Democratic Party has changed a bit under leaders like Bill Clinton and Barack Obama. Bill Clinton's presidency in the 1990s marked a more centrist approach to politics, but its term ended with his impeachment, which impacted public perceptions of the Democrats. But the Great Recession in 2008 enabled Barack Obama to become the first black president of the United States. During his tenure, he passed the Affordable Care Act, which significantly expanded healthcare coverage for millions of Americans. This is very much in line with how Democrats see themselves, expanding social coverage for vulnerable groups in the United States. However, during his time in office, Obama saw significant Republican opposition because of how polarized American politics had become. This only continued in 2016 after Hillary Clinton secured the Democratic nomination as the first female major party nominee. Republican Donald Trump won the presidency, reflecting rising populist sentiments. But for the Democrats, they first nominated Barack Obama, who was an African American, and then Hillary Clinton, who was a woman, which shows something of how the Democrats have begun to see themselves as a socially liberal, progressive party. The 2020 election saw Joe Biden emerge as the Democratic nominee from a historically diverse candidate pool. Running as a moderate and choosing Kamala Harris as his vice president, Biden defeated Trump and took office amid a Democratic Congress. Now, Harris has become the official Democratic nominee for the upcoming November 5th election, which underscores the party's progress towards inclusivity and also evolving a focus on social justice and unifying issues, positioning the Democrats to address ongoing national divisions in the current political landscape. Thank you so much for watching India Today Global.